having. I've been trying to chase this guy down for a couple of weeks, and I knew the longer I wait. He covers the league and the business of the NFL as well as the play on the field. I always enjoy his work as well as his visits here to WNST. He's from the New York Times. Walking on water wasn't invented in a day, says Jack Kerouac on the front of Ken Belson's Twitter. You can follow him as well as a very, very bloodied version of Mr. Met at L_Belson, as well as some delicious-looking sushi here. You New York Times guys, you put the best pictures up on Twitter, I think, Ken.
Some teams wish I didn't, but anyway, the sushi speaks for itself.
Yeah, it does speak for itself. It looks delicious, and 'tis the season when everyone else is eating turkey. Hey, man, you cover the league, and, Goodell's down the street from you, and we've seen Park Avenue be the scene of a protest and Colin Kaepernick stuff and all the other problems this league has had. But civil war at the top of the top, where Jerry Jones is threatening that against all the other owners, this is a new page in the non-football related stuff for the league to cover, right?
For me, generally, yes. There's plenty of disputes that go on within the NFL. Most of them, a majority of them, over commercial issues like moving a team to L.A., for instance, or Las Vegas. That's what you would expect in a league, billionaire owners. But this one has gotten very personal. And there was some of this, obviously, a couple of years ago during Deflategate, but it was really Robert Kraft and the Patriots disputing the league as opposed to Robert Kraft going after other owners. And that's what's new here, is Jerry Jones hasn't just gone against Roger Goodell, but he's struck out or been striking at the owners trying to give Roger Goodell a contract. And so this is a different kind of civil war than the ones you normally see.
Well, in the case of Jerry Jones sort of pulling rank, and I would think that the term ranking owner in front of the other guys that have spent billions of dollars to acquire their franchises, I've been in those rooms, and and I go to the owners' meetings every year, and I know you do as well. There's a lot of ego, there's a lot of pride, there's a lot of money, but there's also a lot of guys that think they know the best way to do this because they've done it in other ways, yet Jerry has always been the smartest guy in the room, so I know that, especially on our side of the fence here with Bisciotti, every time I've ever talked to him about his stewardship under Modell and becoming the owner, Jerry Jones was the guy he always pointed to for advice and to wrap the arm around 20 years ago. Jerry's got a lot of juice in that room, but enough juice to get Goodell thrown out? I don't know.
Yeah, he's look, he's done a lot of good for the league. He's been a tireless the league, but at the same time, it's at least Jerry taking credit for a lot of that, and there is a kind of honor system, if that's the right way of putting it, that there's kind of protocols that take place, committees that are chosen and respected, and that has not been the case the last couple of years. You may recall back 2 years ago when the decision to move the Rams from St. Louis to L.A. was done. The owners, there had been a 6-person owners committee that came up with its recommendation that the Chargers and the Raiders move to L.A. In a different stadium setup, and that was their recommendation. The assumption was they were going to hold the day, and then Jerry engineered a sort of coup of sorts and turned it all around and essentially had the owners vote against their own committee. And I think that that has kind of empowered him on some of these other issues, including Las Vegas. So I think that's the sort of lesson or takeaway here is he's tried to go above the league or act above the league.
Well, in the case of Goodell, he's also got the slipperiest, toughest job in sports. I mean, whether it's dealing with the Players Association, the networks, the egos, the owners, the games themselves, the stadiums being empty, the knee, all of that falls on Roger's desk. I'm not here to say Roger's done a great job or a poor job. I think it's a really tough job, and I don't know that he's ever going to be given universal thumbs up, no matter what his salary might be. And maybe, on the front of it, I don't think that Jerry Jones cares whether he makes $40 or $50 million a year as long as he's doing what Jerry wants him to do. But he serves a lot of masters, and if they're going to throw him out the side door, if that's part of this, I don't know who gets installed there that doesn't become sort of the puppets that came after Fay Vincent on the baseball side, Ken.
Yeah, I think that would be very extreme to throw Jerry out and try and confiscate confiscate his club, or even to suspend him for a year the way George Steinbrenner was suspended years ago is a fairly extreme measure. But there's a lot of smaller ways they can make clear that what he did is, or what he has been doing, is considered disruptive. On the other hand, if he does not follow through and does not sue anybody, which is what he's threatened but not actually done, then I think the charges are less. And then I think some owners would say, you know what, that's Jerry being Jerry. As disruptive and sort of ugly and messy as it's been, they might be willing to, let him go a little bit on this. But it does raise other fundamental issues, and we see this more broadly, across the country, frankly, is when one person tries to hijack an entire process. And that, I think, to many owners is something they don't want to see, because they have to get along with each other, like it or not. And it's a delicate balance, and when one owner is trying to push an agenda more than 31 others, they have to try and reel that person in.
Well, but Jerry's been that guy, and he's never been reeled in. I mean, to your point, I mean, you called it a coup. I mean, it kind of was. I mean, St. Louis doesn't have a team right now because Jerry made that happen, kind of, sort of, right? The Chargers are playing in this, 2-bit soccer stadium because Jerry made that happen. The dome's going up in Englewood because Jerry made. So, Jerry has sort of kind of been running things right on up until Goodell benched his running back, right? I mean, that at the heart of this, that is the petty part of this. It's not really about how well or how poorly Roger has run the league, because Jerry's called a lot of those shots. This really has been about a running back and about a year where Jerry's getting older and wants to win a championship, right?
Yeah, I think I've heard from many people, and even Jerry has sort of alluded to it but denied it in public, that this is about the suspension. The timing of it is too suspicious. 2 days before the Ezekiel Elliott suspension, he essentially signed off on the broad contours of Roger's contract extension, Roger Goodell's contract extension. This was a couple of months after he and 31 other owners voted to extend Roger. So he not only voted to keep Roger around for 5 more years, he knew the details of the contract extension in the broad sense, and signed off on that. 2 days later, Ezekiel Elliott gets suspended on August 11th, and Jerry goes ballistic. So he can deny it, but I think the signs are all there that that's what's motivating him. And look, it's his star player, and owners certainly do complain when their players are suspended if they think it's incorrect. Certainly Robert Kraft did the same over, deflated footballs. We're not even talking about, domestic abuse. So, but Robert Kraft didn't go after other owners, and I think that's the big difference here.
He is Ken Belson. He is L. Belson, L_BELSON, out on Twitter. And, of course, of the New York Times, covering the National Football League. This portion of our WNST programming brought to you by our friends Lee Tessier and his team at Keller Williams, American Premier Realty. You're up there in Harford County or North Baltimore County. Get on out to LeeTessier.com. You risk nothing with him, and he will get your house sold. It's Lee Tessier and his team at Keller Williams, American Premier Realty. Also, Deli-ish over on Wise Avenue for the holidays. After all the turkey's gone, they'll bring you up to speed with New York-style sandwiches, Reuben's, corned beef, lean corned beef, and their tasty specialty sandwiches like the Curly Fryer. Learn more at delibaltimore.com and Deli-ish over on Wise Avenue in Dundalk. Chatting with Ken Belson of the New York Times and his delicious sushi on the front of his Twitter feed. Last thing for you, Ken. We haven't talked any football at all, and Ravens just had a shutout in Green Bay and all that stuff, but on the league issue, I can't think of a year where there's been more tumult aside from this Jerry Jones war going on with Goodell. But the Kaepernick thing to me, and the social issues behind the knee, and the racial issues, and the league issues, and the NFL Players Association, and power and free speech and all of that, that's the thing that they're not going to put a lid on that. It's like CTE. It's going to kind of be there forever. But the Kaepernick thing and the lawsuits and the blackballing of a player in front of everyone's eyes, that's very, very apparent to a guy like me that watched Brett Hundley running around in Green Bay, not scoring any points on Sunday. We're going to be covering this story socially for a long, long time, Ken.
Yeah, although hands to Jerry Jones to essentially push the Kaepernick issue to the back page, probably unintentionally, but of all the things, this is sort of taken over it. 2 weeks ago we were talking about whether Colin Kaepernick would be sitting at a table with the commissioner, and now nobody seems to remember that. But yeah, the parade of second and third-rate quarterbacks getting starting roles really does raise questions, and I'm sure Kaepernick's lawyer, Mark Geragos, is taking notes of all the underwhelming, in some cases immensely underwhelming performances like the one the Buffalo Bills just had. And it would seem to bolster his case. Not speaking legally, but it does look bad anyway, to have so many backup quarterbacks out there that are frankly truly backup quarterbacks.
Well, yeah, and how far that drop-off is from a $25 million quarterback to whomever your Ryan Mallett or Brett Hundley or, in our case this week, Tom Savage might actually be. And there's been a lot of things that have crippled the league, right? I mean, you could sit here and write all day about problems the league has right now, and yet, everybody's going to stop on Thursday and watch football around here. I don't see that going away. I was up in Green Bay. Every seat was taken. That's not the case everywhere, but at some point the bubble was going to burst, right? I mean, it couldn't continue to go forward the way it's gone for 40 years, right?
Yeah, no, I think from that perspective, true. And the NFL, by habit and probably for good reason over the years, has allowed a lot of these scandals, off-field scandals, to kind of blow over because by Thanksgiving, as you noted, fans are pretty involved, and the playoff races are kind of heating up, and then, of course, the playoffs start, and that's where fans ultimately want to pay attention. These issues this year are harder to bury. The league issue with the anthem, obviously, because the president keeps tweeting about it, and the inter-league battle or intra-league battle between the owners is playing out as well, and that's sort of a fundamental issue. So some of the other issues like bullying, I think, for better or for worse, were stories that started in October and by November had kind of been publicly resolved, if not privately, and addressed. The same to some degree with the domestic violence and Ray Rice a couple of years ago. But these are issues this year that are going to kind of keep going, I think.
Ken, always a pleasure to chat with you. Always appreciate your work. We'll be following on Twitter as well as out at the New York Times. Good work your publication's doing on governmental issues this time of year as well. So I appreciate you, Ken. Thanks for coming on, pal.
Thanks.
You got it, Ken Belson, EL_BELSON. Ken Belson of the New York Times with, I don't care what time of the day it is. You see that sushi on the front of his Twitter. I think you'll want to go for the low-sodium soy on that as well. You can find me out in the buyatoyota.com audio vault 24 hours a day from anywhere in the world on your mobile device by downloading the TuneIn Radio app. We do come in crystal clear from wherever you happen to be. Our morning newspaper ships to your email inbox each and every morning at 7 a.m. That's all brought to you by Planet Fitness and PlanetFitness.com. Last but never least, if there's any breaking news at all during the holiday, you're going to get that first on the WNST Tech Service. That is all brought to you by Coons Ford of Security Boulevard. Dennis came in on Wednesday this week. It'll be Thursday again beginning next week when we go back to our regularly scheduled programming. It is the SSV on WNST. And Dennis Kolatzis, of course, sponsoring our WNST Tech Service and Coons Ford of Security Boulevard. I'm Nasty at WNST.net, a very available individual here even in the Orioles offseason. Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Snapchat, Instagram, streaming live on our Facebook as well as our YouTube WNSTV channel. We are WNST.net, AM 1570 and WNST Towson, Baltimore, and we never stop talking Baltimore sports.